Hi, Dominic. I was born in the summer during golden hour, and that's really special to me.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. We are so pleased to have Ari here. We're just so happy that she reached out to us and wanted to talk about her son, Kai. So thank you so much for coming on. We're so pleased to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Winter. I really appreciate having this space to talk about my boy.
I know. We just need spaces like this, so we're glad to be that space. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us what your family looks like, especially at the time that Kai was born, and also kind of give us a little bit of an idea of when he was born at the time, relative to the time of this recording.
Yeah, so Kai was born in July 2022, which is about 22 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
A bit about myself. Well, I work in the nonprofit sphere and development operations, and my org kind of focuses on environmental restoration and alleviating poverty, and that's a really special place to me personally. It really aligns with my values. And grew up, was born and raised in San Diego, still here, never quite left. And
it is lovely there, though.
I don't, not too tempted to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely really other beautiful areas that I think I'd like to explore and live in, but I think I'd always come home to San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your partner is, can you tell us a little bit about him and?
Yeah. So I'm been married to my husband, Adam, for, we're coming up on 8 years actually. Next week is our anniversary.
Yeah. Awesome.
But prior to that, we are high school sweethearts, friends even before that. And actually met through our church youth group. So yeah, it's been a really sweet relationship. I feel like, I don't know, I've always felt like one with him, and we just seem to be like very often like on the same wavelength. And I just feel so blessed that we really align in so many ways. And it's funny, one of our siblings I forgot what they had asked. I think it was something along the lines of like, if we are like opposites or if we're really similar. And Adam's response was that we're like the same person. So yeah, it's my relationship with him has been such a blessing and an anchor, I think, in my life.
That is wonderful. You guys sound like you have a really lovely relationship, and I just think that's so cool. So, and he's from San Diego area as well, I'm assuming.
He was born in Eugene, Oregon, and then lived in Kirkland, Washington for a bit. So he grew up in kind of the Pacific Northwest, and then eventually his family moved down to San Diego, like when he was still pretty young, like under 10. So he's definitely raised in San Diego and a local for sure.
Yeah. He's there. You guys are there.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. And what do you guys like to do in your spare time? What's some of your hobbies that you guys like to do?
Well, at this point in time, we really like to kind of catch the music scene, like locally here in San Diego.
Yeah.
We we'll go to different live music events. We watch a lot of TV. I'm sure there's a lot of shows that like you can mention that we probably watch.
Yeah.
And when we're not binging, we do enjoy also like getting outside. We like to hike, explore national parks. We've done a few backpacking trips and lots of camping, rock climbing, but that's mostly like indoor.
Okay.
And then Adam actually even was previously a whitewater river rafting guide. Very hard to say quickly, but
that's
he did
awesome.
that for a few summers, and I know that's still a passion of his. And snowboarding. We really enjoy our winters too.
Hey, have you come out to Utah? I'm just curious now for
Not
snowboarding.
in many years. Our youth group would take us like almost every year to Bryan Head. To snowboard and ski at that resort.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That is wonderful. Okay. Well, you guys sound like you're super active and just living a good life in San Diego.
Yeah, not too much. We had a baby 7 months ago, so that's kind of slowed us down for sure.
Yes, that has. Okay. Yes, and so a 7-month-old now. So, okay, that is good to hear that. And okay, and then when you guys, so you got married 8 years ago, is that right? Or is it okay, so 8 years ago. Were you guys planning on having a family? Was that something that you wanted to always have, or was this something like not totally sure about it? Tell me what your family plans were or are.
Yeah. I think we always wanted to have a family, and we liked the idea of like starting our family young, but at the same time, like we kind of entered like university phase of college, like kind of late in life. And so put that off for a while. And when we finally graduated in 2020, I kind of got serious about like wanting to start our family.
Yeah.
And so at that time, we were living with my sister-in-law, and we moved out, found our own place, and then actively we're trying to conceive. But it took us a year and a half before we fell pregnant with Kai, and that was hard. I don't think I don't know if we necessarily struggle with any like fertility issues.
Yeah. But for 18 months, that's kind of a long time to have major issue. I mean, like to get pregnant, I think.
I think so too. And so it was, I think after like, I think every month after the year mark, I just was getting more and more discouraged. And the same thing was kind of, happening for my best friend. She was also trying to conceive at the same time. And we would just lament to each other like, like so-and-so is pregnant. It's wonderful, but why not us? But we never looked into fertility and ended up conceiving naturally. So when it finally did happen, it was just like so much joy and really exciting.
Yeah. How did you tell Adam? Or I guess were you guys there at the same time when you did the pregnancy test that month, or
no,
how did that go down?
I can be a bit theatrical, I guess you could say. I don't know. I like to romanticize life and like make like memories and like make a moment of something. And so naturally with this, I did the same thing with telling Adam and then telling friends and family. But I found out beginning of January in 2022 and kept it to myself for like, I think 3 or 4 days because I was very specifically like waiting to for a book to arrive that I had ordered, which was I don't recall the exact title. I think it's called The Book of Dad Jokes.
Oh.
And so I put that in a gift box along with the pregnancy test, and he was actually napping when I wanted to tell him. So I like woke him up and told him I have this present for you. And so he opened that and was like, "You're pregnant?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was I feel like for the moment he was kind of subdued because I think he just could sense that I was like recording him, which was true. I was,
Yes.
but only purely for home memories and
Yeah.
home videos and not for
Yeah.
social.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really a really sweet and tender moment.
Yay. That's so exciting. It is really exciting to tell your partner and
Yeah.
be a part of that. Yay, that's so fun. Um, okay, so you got pregnant, and did you start setting up an appointment with your OBGYN to do those first little bit of appointments and possibly ultrasound? Some folks do and some folks don't. So how did that look for those first little appointments?
Yeah, we didn't have health insurance for, I think we had a gap of a year or maybe
Mm-hmm.
more, but um, at that time, Adam was just starting a new job and we were switching health insurance. Oh no, we did have health insurance, but we were
Mm-hmm.
switching it over from my employer to his. And
Gotcha.
so it kind of took us a while in that transition to find a doctor within this new network that we were in. And I didn't have a current OB/GYN at the time. So I was just like researching it a bunch. And when we finally did figure out like who I wanted to see and where that would be, it wasn't until like I was 11 weeks and 2 days. It was quite a while. It's almost
Yeah.
close to near the end of the first trimester.
The first trimester. Yeah. Okay. So, but you found somebody that you felt comfortable with and was within the network and everything.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of time to try to figure that out, and maybe was also just putting it off at some points. But I think in part of that, we were also just really nervous in being pregnant in the first trimester, just having prior knowledge of like miscarriage and how frequently that does happen. And so I don't know, I feel like that should have probably spurred me to be like immediately want to go in, but I don't know, it seemed to kind of have more of the opposite effect. But I think that was like less of a reason and more so it's just trying to find somebody I felt really comfortable with. That was really important for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That is, yeah, I think that's a very, to take your time on that kind of thing. I think it's good. So you were able to finally get in at 11-ish weeks. Was Adam able to come with you? Was he for those appointments?
Yes, he was there for the first few appointments. And after that, we kind of tailed off on attending those.
Mm-hmm.
But he was there for the first one with the ultrasound, and baby was there looking good and healthy. And it was just so exciting. And yeah, it was very, very exhilarating. It was in that moment where we were like, this is real. Like,
this is real.
We're really going to have a baby in our first, like, wild.
Yeah. It's so crazy when you go to that first one. Were you guys planning on doing any sort of genetic testing or anything like that early on? Because I know some people do. I know sometimes it's not covered by insurance and that type of thing. So did you end up doing
We had
it?
talked about it, and the nurse practitioner who was we saw for the first appointment was kind of telling us about it. That was the first that we had ever heard of like genetic testing, and so we did a lot of research and kind of really weighing the odds. They did tell me that there could be like potential risks in doing certain genetic testing.
Yeah.
And I think I learned a lot more about it in my second pregnancy. But at that time, we ended up choosing to opt out because we felt that if we did learn anything, it wouldn't change our position and in wanting that baby and doing whatever we could. So we did not. We opted out.
Okay. Because I know also some people do it because they also want to learn the gender of the baby sooner than later. So
yeah, I didn't even know that was
an option.
You could learn that early. Yeah. So maybe if we did do that, we would have. If we knew that, we might have. But no, we did not. And so we waited until the anatomy scan when we learned the gender.
Gotcha. Were you feeling okay in that first trimester? I know that you hadn't seen the OBGYN for a minute, but how were you feeling during that time?
Physically, really well.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, that honestly, like there was never any sort of morning sickness,
Mm-hmm.
no nausea, nothing. I think my appetite was like ravenous.
Oh,
But outside of that, like, no, I was feeling pretty much the same.
pretty good.
Yeah, feeling really well. And I think I more so was feeling like anxious though, than
Hmm.
anything. Yeah.
Hmm. I wonder where that anxious feeling is. It was that due to just knowing about miscarriage and
I think a
more.
little bit of that. And then also I'm just kind of an anxious person.
Okay.
But yeah, I had like vocalized that maybe a couple of times that like, like miscarriage is a very real thing. Like,
Yeah.
and so we were very cautious in when we told
Yeah.
other people. The first people we told were our dogs right after the first scan. I
Oh, that's
like held up,
hilarious.
yeah, I held up the like
Oh.
the ultrasound, the picture to my dogs. I was like, you're getting a sibling.
Oh, that is so funny and so cute.
Yeah, thank you.
So when did you end up telling everybody or telling friends, family, that type of thing?
It was in like beginning of March. I'm not sure
Okay.
how many weeks that was, so maybe like two. That's like around 3 months in.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you do any sort of announcements it sounds like you like doing things with effect. And so did you do any fun announcement or
Yes.
anything to surprise them or share with them your
Yes.
news?
Yeah. I had created like a gift box again
Mhm.
for like a set for each like parents and then each of Adam's siblings and their spouses and then a couple of friends and my sister. And so in these gift boxes, I created like this little banner that said baby, and there were like confetti poppers
Yeah.
and those little like I don't know what you call it, like the little blower things you use on New Year's Eve where it
Yes.
like
Yep.
kind of
Mhm.
makes a sound. And there was tissues and then like a little I love kind of graphic design things. So I created a card that on the front it said guess what? And on the back it had the picture of the ultrasound. And then I also labored many hours and made these chocolates that said, we are pregnant.
Oh,
So I gave each person like one of these gifts and then recorded videos of their reactions. And that was just so sweet to like have that memory and look back on. I really cherish that.
yeah. Everybody just being so excited for you. It's fun to tell family members. I think it's just exciting.
Yeah.
And that's really cute. And you are very diligent in like doing fun things. That sounds so fun. Oh,
Yeah. I guess that's one of, you can say a hobby of mine. I really like to get crafty.
yeah,
But
yeah,
usually it's only like with special events or
yeah,
gifts like that.
yeah.
But yeah, and then
That's
for my brothers, they weren't in town. So I ended up just telling them over Zoom, but it was really sweet. I did kind of the same thing of like just holding up like the guess what card and they're like, "Ah, you're pregnant." I would turn it around and yes.
like,
But yeah,
yay.
everybody knew when we were trying and just waiting patiently along
Yeah.
with us.
Yay. Do you have any other like little nieces and nephews in your family? You do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on my side of the family, I have two brothers and one sister, and both of my brothers have children.
Mm-hmm.
So my niece from my oldest brother, me and my siblings are all very spread out in age, but my oldest brother has what is now a 20-year-old daughter.
Okay.
I just saw her. She came out really recently, and she's just the sweetest. And then my other brother, who's the one closest in age to me, he has a 4-year-old.
Oh, fun.
Um, they're just, I don't know, I love them so much. But
Yeah.
on Adam's side of the family, there were no children. at the time. So
So
just
this,
my niece and my nephew.
yeah. So this would have been a first on that side of the family, on Adam's side of the family.
Yes.
Super exciting. So exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, fun. And okay, so you're going along. You went through first trimester. Okay, not feeling horrible. You're feeling great, actually, which is so nice. And your appointments were good. It sounded like there was nothing of great concern at any of those early appointments that you can
No.
remember.
Yeah. No, they all went off without a hitch.
Okay.
It was looking like really healthy pregnancy and no concerns, no complications.
Okay.
It's yeah, looking really
So
good.
so far so good. Okay. Then I'm assuming you kind of the next big one was the anatomy scan at that ultrasound. Can you tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about that and how that went that day? And then also, it sounds like you wanted to find out or didn't want to find out the gender right away.
Yeah, yeah, we did. So we went into the anatomy scan very excited to learn
Yes.
about it. And we went in a little early. We did an 18-week anatomy
Oh,
scan.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time to complete that anatomy scan. It was like maybe I think they had told us it could take upwards of like 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Um, and it took the full time, not because there was any sort of like concerns,
Yeah.
but just because like baby wasn't positioned right for
Right.
whatever scan they were doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was looking really good, really healthy. And that is when we learned it was a boy, really excited. Um,
Yay.
yeah, I think Adam was hoping for a boy. I was hoping for a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really funny was when we learned what the gender was, we both kind of switched and were like, I was really excited. I was like,
Yeah.
yay, like I'm going to be a boy mom.
Yeah.
But Adam was like, oh, I wonder what it'd be like having a girl.
Yeah. Oh, that's
But
so funny.
yeah, we definitely flip-flopped, but we were thrilled nonetheless.
Yeah. Um, from there, did you guys end up having any names? Did you have lists of names that you were thinking about to name
Yeah,
your son, I guess?
yeah. We I don't know. I'm a planner, so I've had names like picked out for girls for years, which
Yeah.
is I think why I really wanted a girl because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to use my girl
Real.
names.
I'm planned. I'm well.
But
I'm ready.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But with boy names, we struggled. Yeah, we had a running list
Mhm.
going, and I don't know, it had probably like 14 names on it, just there and available for me to kind of like look at again and again,
Right.
and just kind of dwell on. And they were both names that like I had suggested and that Adam had liked and suggested.
Mhm.
But we didn't decide on Kai's name until he was born. So we had that name was kind of suggested by Adam like very early on, and we both really liked it, and we just kind of like I don't know, we weren't ready to pick. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was on the list originally. It wasn't something that was pulled out of nowhere. So it was on the list. Okay. That's
mhm.
so fun. I'm sure you're and then did you guys end up doing like a gender reveal with your family or family and friends? That's another thing that's kind of a big deal or a lot of people like to do something like that to celebrate.
Yeah. No, we did not. Um, we did not.
Okay. Okay, great. Um so you're in your second trimester now. Everything looked good. Everything generally check out? You said he looked healthy, but was there any other concerns or anything that came up at that time?
No, and we actually had ultrasounds at every single appointment that I had.
Oh,
And I know now that that's not quite the norm.
yeah.
I had always known about like Dopplers
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
was expecting to like that be a part of our appointments. But every time we had an ultrasound, and with this being my first pregnancy, I like, I don't know, started to wonder like what a Doppler was. And if I ever did get one, I was like, I don't know if I do know what that is. But
Yeah.
we had an
Yeah.
ultrasound at every single appointment. and got to see Kai
Which is so fun.
wiggling around and hear his heartbeat. And I feel really blessed that was, a part of his life, that we saw him every time.
Yeah.
That was really sweet and a really, I think a blessing from God. But everything, every single appointment, he was looking really good, really healthy, progressing on track. So
Yeah. So exciting. And it's fun to see. Like, I just can't believe that you had ultrasounds every single time. I think that's awesome. Because yes, that is not an option. I mean, not necessarily not an option, but it's not offered at many clinics and such for one reason or the other. So I think that's pretty neat that you got to have that time with him at all of your visits. So like, that's rad. And you were still feeling good. How are you? Yeah. How was your health? Your health, like as the mom, how was your health during this time?
Good. It was really good. Again, still very ravenous appetite. No unusual cravings ever. Really wanted carbs and sweets.
Yeah.
But my health was doing really well. I think when we fell pregnant, I was like at the peak of my health and just kind of continued on at that
was
point.
Super helpful when you're in good shape. Did your family end up having a baby shower or anything to start celebrating his arrival?
Yes. I took it upon myself to actually like do the bulk of the planning because I am a control freak and very particular, and I had
I was
a
gonna
very
say,
clear
it sounds
vision.
like, I was gonna say, it sounds like you really enjoy that planning too. I think so. You might as well embrace it.
Yes, I do. And so, I started planning like way early, had a very clear vision. We were going to do, the theme was a baby storm, kind of a play on the idea of like, weather and it being a shower.
Yeah.
And so I had like been crafting like for weeks, making these like, these clouds.
Oh,
Like
cute.
and they were supposed to like look realistic. They were like, I used like pillow or like
The
stuffed
stuffing.
animal kind of stuffing and
Yeah.
put that on like lantern. So it like had a kind of realistic
Yeah.
like look to it. And with some of my best friends, we made like these arches to kind of like create like rainbows as like a backdrop. And
Super cute.
what else did I do? I made like the little table like bases. So I was planning for weeks and like doing these crafts for weeks leading up to it. But we actually didn't get as far as the shower, unfortunately. And that was something that honestly was like very heartbreaking to me.
So tell us then why you didn't get to the shower. Then tell us a little bit more about the series of events that happened.
We had the shower planned for the like mid-July, roughly. Actually, like a few weeks prior to that, Adam and I had gotten COVID, and so we both were sick for like a week. Our symptoms were both like very mild.
Yes. But you guys definitively tested and knew that you had COVID.
Yeah, we took the test and it was positive, and we in part wanted to take the tests because we had a concert that we were supposed to go to. Adam was really excited. It was like the day of his birthday. We were going to go see Tenacious D, and Jack Black is like an all-time favorite. Yes,
my gosh. I would have been like, I don't want to take this test. I want to go to
we were very like tempted not to. We wanted to be really responsible and not get anybody sick. So we tested and found out, oh no, we have COVID. Like, and even then we like weighed like, should we go? Like, it's Jack Black. And we're like, no. Like, and he laments about that. Like to this day, it was definitely very sad for him not being able to go. But so we ended up getting COVID. And then
so that was Was that mid-June-ish? Sorry, when was that?
That was like the last week of June
Last
when
week of
that
June.
happened.
And about how many weeks were you at that time? Do
At
you
that point, I
remember?
was 28 weeks.
28. Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, being pregnant, I was very concerned and
Mm-hmm.
looked up, what that meant in terms of pregnancy and the health, like not just my health, but baby's health.
Yeah.
And it was alarming what I read. It was a lot of like saying that
Yeah.
it could result in preterm labor or even stillbirth. And so being very alarmed, like I immediately like messaged my doctor's office and I think I called them too and told them like what I was experiencing, my symptoms, and I don't recall if I actually got in touch with somebody over the phone
Mm-hmm.
and I spoke directly with a nurse or if I had received a message back from my OB/GYN, but
Mm-hmm.
they had told me, like, considering my symptoms, that it's okay for me to just kind of treat myself at home, which just meant like, taking it easy, like resting,
Right.
getting lots of fluids. Yeah, nothing really major. I could use like cold medicine, I think is me. I honestly don't remember. Maybe they told me like Tylenol, something for fevers, but I didn't even have a fever. It was
Okay.
the symptoms are very much like a head cold at
Oh,
the
okay.
at its worst. So they weren't particularly concerned about that, especially because I think the next week, so at 29 weeks, I would have my next appointment. And so they said I'd be okay to stay at home, rest, recover, and then we'll check in next week and see how I'm doing. But if my symptoms did worsen, then I should go to the hospital
Yeah. Okay.
and get that checked out.
Okay. But both you and Adam were generally okay. Mild symptoms for COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mild symptoms. We were mostly just really bummed about Tenacious D
Yes,
and
and totally get that.
anxious for baby. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that is obviously a concern as well. So you did go in the next week then, or did you have to? I can't remember what the regulations, especially in California, are, but ours changed where you had to just at one point in time you had to make sure that you had a negative test before you went outside, and then it changed
Mhm.
after a while. So
Mhm.
did you have to test negative before going into the hospital? I mean, to go see your OBGYN the next week? Do you remember that?
I don't know that they required it. I think at this point the like COVID restrictions had lessened up. But
Right.
obviously within like medical offices in the hospital in California, they were still being very cautious
Mhm.
and like requiring masks and
Mhm.
limiting like people coming in who didn't actually have an appointment for
Yeah.
themselves. But I think out of caution, we still tested beforehand, or
Okay.
maybe they did. I don't recall that specifically.
Okay. So you but you were able to ultimately able to go in and check you and the baby out that following week.
Yeah, yeah. So we went in, or I should say I went in. I don't think Adam was there at this appointment.
Mhm.
Um, and I was feeling fine at that time, feeling really good. Didn't have any like lasting symptoms. And at that time, this was the only appointment where I didn't see specifically like my OBGYN. I saw the nurse practitioner for this office, and
Okay.
she told me that Kai was looking really good, really healthy, no concerns at all. But out of caution for her having COVID, she wanted to start doing NSTs, so the non-stress test.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, is also when you start to transition into more frequent appointments. I think it's
Right.
becomes bi-weekly rather
Yeah.
than once a month. So we were going to do that. And then, yeah, at every appointment, I would have a non-stress test was the plan.
Okay.
And so I felt really good about that and went home. We had a pretty long weekend that followed up. So that appointment was on a Wednesday. And then at this point, being 29 weeks, I had just started doing the kick counts.
Okay.
And so
were you
I know
able
that's
to?
something.
I was going to
Go
ask.
ahead.
Could you feel him pretty well, or yeah, was it strong kicks or anything, or I know it's still kind of. It could be not very strong, but were you able to feel him okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't recall when I started feeling his movements. Maybe when does that happen? Like 24,
Yeah,
22,
it's
like at
around
the
that time.
earliest.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, oh my gosh, I loved feeling his movements. It was just so alien for one. It was very new to me. I was like, this just feels like literally out of the movie Alien, like something's like squirming inside me. That's so weird.
Yeah.
But also like so sweet and
Yeah.
just like the fluttering feelings, at least when it's early, and then um, as we progressed, he got stronger and was very active, particularly like during the mornings when I was home working, working from home, like just sitting at the dining table. My feet were up, and I would feel him move a bunch. And then the same thing when I would go to bed. That's when he just really wanted to get active. Something about like resting. I don't know if this is common, but yeah, every time I was like basically resting, it was when he decided like, all right, like it's time to party.
What are you
I'm
doing,
gonna move
Mom?
around. Yes.
Super cute. And so you said you started to kind of be a little bit more diligent about actually counting kicks. And for those who don't know what counting kicks is, they usually say, and there's an app, I think there's probably several apps out there, but there's like kind of one main app called Count the Kicks. And you sit down and find I don't know, a time that you will always sit down kind of at the same time so you can know their pattern. And you just hit, there's like a little foot app album, like little logo, and you just hit it every single time you feel them. And just to kind of monitor their movement. So, um, so did you? So you started to do it at that time?
Yeah, I wasn't always super consistent, and so I was trying to be, because I knew this is important. And especially after having COVID, like
Yeah.
wanted to, monitor as much as I could on my end. And so I hadn't quite found like a pattern in
Hmm.
his movement, because I know they said like, oh yeah, there will be a pattern maybe in the time of the day, or like how frequently he is kicking or baby is kicking, and how long like it takes to get to those 10 kicks that you're like waiting for. Is it 10? I think it's 10.
Yeah. It's yeah. I think it is about 10.
And so, yeah, there wasn't a consistent pattern that I had noticed yet. So yeah, I think at that point, after that appointment, was the pattern was everywhere. It was like sometimes it would take like 10 minutes, and I reached those 10 kicks, or sometimes it would take like half an hour.
Yeah.
But it was usually very like they were decently strong kicks.
Yeah.
And it being so new, I also just wasn't quite sure like what movements to count necessarily.
Right.
If it was a kick, or if maybe he was just kind of like turning,
Hmm.
or even hiccups. I knew not to count hiccups, but
Hmm.
there was just a lot of I think maybe like not too much clarity for my part. And so over that following weekend, I felt like a little concerned, because although I didn't quite have an established pattern that I recognized,
Hmm.
it did feel like different. And I
Oh.
just felt more tired that weekend too. Um, I'm referencing the weekend right after the appointment. And yeah, I felt more tired, but it was also like middle of summer and it gets decently hot in San Diego.
Right.
And in this year, Adam and I had been going to the baseball stadium here. We were going to Petco Park felt like almost every other weekend.
Oh,
So we had season tickets this year.
yeah.
It was exhausting. And we tend to like park a mile away or so and walk in.
Right.
And so we had a game that weekend, and I just was thinking like, oh, it might just be that like I'm getting further in my pregnancy.
Right.
It's really hot. I walked a bunch for, I think, how pregnant I am, or at least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's where the tiredness is coming from. And yeah, just busyness of the weekend, not really feeling, maybe that's what's stemming my not having confidence in the movements that I'm feeling. So I kind of brushed it off. But what did vocalize it to Adam, and we were both concerned and like kept going back and forth of like, well, should we go like to the hospital? Like,
yeah.
We and I guess I really was the one who made that decision of saying like, no, like I think I'm okay. Like I think I just need to take it easy. I need to cool off. I need to rest. But yeah, that Sunday night still was like starting to feel really concerned about like the less movement or lack of movement that maybe I was feeling. I honestly thought it was less movement and not a lack of movement, because I did feel like I was feeling some sort of movement down there.
Okay.
And so I had decided like Monday morning, first thing of the day, like I'm going to go into triage and just check out how he's doing. And so I did that. But before going, I did like try and count kicks, wasn't feeling anything, starting to get really worried. So I drank like a glass of cold water, like ice water. Still wasn't feeling anything. And I didn't like necessarily sit and wait for a very long time though.
Yeah.
I was just starting to get more and more anxious at this point. And so I don't know, but at the same time was just kind of telling myself like, no, he's okay. Like I might just be like overreacting. But with that anxiousness, I decided to still go in since I hadn't felt any movement. And Adam stayed home. And so I was driving to the hospital myself, and was just like I was listening to a couple of songs that were kind of really special to me, and like for me, like I don't know, like where I felt like the theme of my pregnancy, I guess you can say. One of these songs was ABBA's song. I don't remember the title, but I had heard it in Mamma Mia, and I think it's when the main character finds out that she's pregnant. It becomes like she just sings this beautiful song of like, have always been waiting for this child. So it's kind of just singing that to myself. And then another song was by Us, the Duo. So I was just kind of singing these songs that meant so much to me in this pregnancy, and just hoping and praying for the best. And then also just praying to God, like, please, like, I'm just praying that like this is just me worrying, and that Kai is doing fine, baby's doing fine and healthy. Please just let my anxiousness be nothing but anxiousness. And so I go in to the hospital, go into triage, and it's like maybe 8 a.m. at this point, and it's just so quiet in there. Not a lot of people there at all. There's maybe one other person. And at this time, like I didn't know what it was that I was hearing. I don't know why I didn't know this, but I think somebody else was there doing a non-stress test, because I could hear a heartbeat from some sort of monitor, whether that be a Doppler or an ultrasound. And so, I hear that. That's just kind of setting the scene. And the nurse comes up to me, is like ready to take me in. And she pulls me into like a private curtained area for me and busts out her Doppler to kind of find baby's heartbeat. And I'm just kind of very, I don't know, not focused on anything that she's doing, but just very much so in my own headspace of anxiety and just like waiting to hear like, here he is, like doing good.
Yeah.
So I'm just very, very distracted and zoned out. But she doesn't find his heartbeat yet. And so she actually takes me to a different curtained area. And I think maybe she's trying to use the ultrasound machine to find him. And still nothing. And we kind of go back and forth between these two different like curtained areas. And so I'm just feeling a little flustered and like anxious and zoned out still. And so she leaves me in one space and says that she's going to go grab a doctor because she's having some trouble and just wants to bring in somebody else to help me. And so she goes and grabs another doctor. And I am just so anxious the whole time I'm waiting. It feels like, I don't know, like minutes are just like going by. I'm sure it was all very quick, but he comes in and introduces himself and says that he's going to do an ultrasound. And so, he's looking for the baby, looking for a heartbeat. And in that time, again, I'm just so zoned out and like kind of spacey. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is taking so long? Like, what is it that he's looking for? What is it that like we're not finding? And then I'm immediately like, the heartbeat, of course, like, well, and nothing's coming up. And so now I'm just starting to feel like overwhelmed and like the worst has happened. And he tells me that there's no heartbeat. And he asked me if I understood what that meant. And I just nodded and at this point the nurse was still there and they just were both so apologetic and trying to comfort me and putting their hands on me and asking me if there's anybody that they could call or that I needed to get in touch with. And so, my heart just sunk. And it was just like such disbelief. And immediately, it was just, I don't know, beating myself up for not having gotten in earlier. I'm just flooded with questions of like, how long ago did he pass? Like, and then also just feeling like, disbelief that like, no, like this can't be real. Like this, somebody's gonna find his heartbeat. Like it just can't be real. And so, before they do have me call Adam, they said that they wanted to get one other doctor, a specialist, to come down and just confirm what his findings were. And so minutes pass and this other doctor comes and she introduces herself as being a, I don't know, some sort of specialist. And I would later see her in my second pregnancy. She I think she specializes in like at-risk sort of pregnancies. And so she came down and was very, very kind and very gentle. I mean, both doctors were, and so was the nurse, and told me the same thing, that she could not find a heartbeat and that she was just so terribly sorry. And Yeah, I don't know. They just kind of flood you with like information and questions all at once, and or at least that was my experience, and it was, um, I don't know, it was overwhelming. I don't remember all the details about it specifically, but I think at that point I was really just trying to hold back my tears, just being kind of more a private person and definitely very introverted. Was crying, like tears were coming out, but when I cry, when I sob, I'm like wailing. And so
Yeah.
when I finally got a hold of Adam, when they let me call him, it was actually kind of difficult. Like they don't have great service in the
Oh,
hospital. So I had to use their like landline. So Adam's getting a call from like a completely unknown number, picks it up, thankfully on the first call. And I don't remember my exact words of having to tell him, but was just the hardest thing that I think I've ever had to do is telling him that his baby had passed. And already I was feeling like so much guilt. Yeah.
yeah.
And so I don't recall him at that point breaking down. He was very shocked and stopped everything and came down to the hospital immediately. It's very quick drive, like maybe 20 minutes, and came up to be with me. And we just, I don't know, I had the biggest hug and just wept and sobbed together. And so we're still in triage. And when all of this is happening and they tell me like that they couldn't find a heartbeat, I had mentioned there was like one other person and they're doing an NST, but in those moments, like it felt like the room was just silent. Um, and like the world had just halted. And in that moment, yeah, it really did. Like it just felt like the world had stopped and this was all that was happening was our baby had died.
Because that's what happened. I know you were bombarded with a lot of information because that's usually one thing that just, uh, especially if you're zoned out and are in shock from the news you just got. Did they talk to you about different options for the delivery of Kai?
They did. They had, yeah, that was shocking in itself.
Yeah.
Learning that, I was still gonna have to deliver.
Yeah.
It's definitely not something that was like on my mind, but they told me that best options were for me to deliver naturally. I did ask about like options for C-section, just wanting to know like
Right.
if that was something that could be done. And they said, no, we really recommend that you would deliver naturally. That's the best for your health and recovery afterwards. And this being 30 weeks, I don't recall if they had specifically mentioned this at that time that he would be smaller. And so delivery might like, I mean, be different, just having
Yeah.
a smaller baby, maybe easier in some senses. I don't know, but they did tell me I could go home and grab anything that I needed and take some time and come back. Um, but because, you know, we weren't sure, I wasn't certain about like when I had stopped feeling movement, and that meant there was uncertainty of how long ago he had passed.
Yeah.
They wanted me to definitely induce that day and not wait any longer. And so we opted to just stay and try and induce immediately. And just I don't know. I don't think we could bear like the idea of like waiting longer with this news. And so they, eventually moved us up into labor and delivery, and they found a quiet corner of that floor. And during that transfer from triage to labor and delivery, the hospital was very quiet. Not a lot of people there, which I'm in hindsight really grateful for. And they put us in a really big, spacious, and quiet room. And that whole time, like, I didn't hear any other like mothers in labor, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But anytime Adam did leave the room in like our area, he would encounter like other parents who were expecting and soon to deliver, and that was really hard for him. But for me, it was just, again, like, world had stopped, nothing else was happening except for like me still carrying Kai and these last like bittersweet moments. And they induced, they used Pitocin to induce me. And I had actually waited a long time before having an epidural. They did continuously ask me, to just kind of like ease my pain physically and emotionally. But for me, like, I really wanted to just labor for as long as I could naturally. I think in that moment, I was just kind of feeling like, my baby died, and there's not going to be a lot of like, there's going to be a whole lifetime of things that I don't get to do for him. And this is like the least thing that I can do in a moment that I don't want to miss is delivering him and feeling like, just feeling it all. And so, at the most, for like that first day, they gave me fentanyl like towards the evening. But I was just trying to like just feel everything really, and trying to like, I don't know, just be in meditation and manage my pain in that way.
Yeah. The time of being in the labor and delivery ward, did you guys end up telling your parents or your family members what had happened, or were you planning on waiting a little bit to tell them?
We both called our moms. So I called my mom, and Adam called his mom and told her. That was such a hard phone call to make, but we asked them to kind of spread the news among our family. And so, when I called my mom, I was just kind of sobbing, and she, being very worried, was asking me, like, what's wrong? Like, is everything okay? And it's like, no, like, it's not okay. And so she just starts weeping without even knowing anything, just, that motherly affection of like, when my child hurts, like I hurt. And I told her the news, and then she started wailing, and it was just so heartbreaking, like having to like break her heart with this news. We had each parent just spread the news among our family. We're siblings really at this point. And they asked, everyone texted us. They weren't calling us. I think they were trying to, respect our, I guess, boundaries. There's just respect, like the space that we were in that moment. Asking like how they could help, how they could be here for us if we wanted them to come and visit. And again, with like there still being some COVID restrictions, at the most we could only have 2 people in our room. But regardless of that, I shouldn't say I personally just couldn't bear I couldn't bear having other people outside of Adam and our healthcare professionals being in the room with us. I think it was just too hard for me. I just really wanted space, and that's just kind of how I generally process feelings, is just needing personal space. And so everyone just stayed home and were continuously like checking in on us, seeing how we were doing and what they could do if we needed food. And we had such incredible support. I did in the labor and delivery ward end up calling my best friend and telling her the news. And she was just, at this point, she had a 5-month-old. And it was just, I know, heartbreaking for her too, like losing essentially like her nephew and who we had planned on being like best friends with her son. But I'm just so grateful for her support and grateful for everybody who did like reach out while we were there. And we and also our healthcare professionals were like so supportive. I feel like through this whole process I had like the best support anybody could really have, like having to process this. We did have like a assigned social worker in the hospital who would come in and check on us, and just she was so gentle and so considerate of like how much we were processing, and spoke really slowly and would repeat things, just tell us like what we would expect, what to expect in this process, and telling us what sort of plans we need to make afterwards with Kai's memorial and his either burial or cremation, and
Right.
other tools and resources we could find locally here for support, and then also like what we could do with after Kai was born, and the time that we could spend with him and how we could spend that time together. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally am like the type of person who just likes to have details and know what sort of expectations to have in anything. And so I feel really blessed that like this person was able to communicate that, do it so gently,
Right.
and really meet us in the space that we were in, like emotionally, and just convey all these things, because I know that's not something everybody gets.
Yeah. It really sounds like she took care of you, because it really is. It's a lot of information, and to also be in that state of shock, and that takes a bit of skill, I think, to convey all that information without overwhelming. So, shout out to that social worker for taking care of you. By this time, had you guys started to call him Kai? Did you decide on his name, or was it a little bit later when he was actually born that you started to call him Kai?
Yeah, we started to think about it that day when we had learned the news. I told Adam, like, we're gonna have to give him a name. And towards like those final weeks, I had mentioned that like, I was really liking the name Kai, and kind of just started using that name when I would reference the baby. And so, Yeah, I feel like I had such a complex like naming convention in what I wanted to name like our children. And that came really easily with like girls' names, but like I said before, like with boys' names, it was like a struggle.
Yeah.
But I really wanted like a name that would honor either like my Hawaiian heritage or Adam's like Mexican heritage, and had like special meanings with like the first and the middle name kind of tied in together.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's how my parents named me and my siblings. We all have the same middle name, which is Michael or Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And that means like image of Michael means and Michelle both mean image of God.
Yeah.
So my name meaning like holy image of God. I really wanted like this sort of theme of like special meaning with this
Yeah.
baby's names. But yeah, with Kai means sea, and then it has another meaning. I can't recall what it is exactly that my parents had learned of. But Dominic, wait, so we had decided with Kai because that was something that like I had already been like kind of calling him and was felt emotionally tied to. And at first, Adam was like kind of a little hesitant with
Uh-huh.
using Kai because that was a name that he really liked, and it just felt really painful, losing this baby and maybe giving him that name. But he, I think he maybe wanted to kind of like save it, but I told him, like regardless of, like the outcome of this pregnancy and this baby's death, like he's a part of our family. We're always going to love him. It's going to be painful, but like we should use the name that you love. Like we shouldn't try and save that. Like this baby's like important and he's a part of this family, and that his death shouldn't like change things. And so he agreed. And so we settled on Kai. And then Dominic was another name from my list of baby names that I had really liked. I had suggested this one, but Adam initially did not like it because it just made him think of Dom from Fast and Furious.
Oh.
That's what he told me like when I had first like suggested it. But I felt really strongly about using Dominic as his middle name because it means belonging to the Lord. And so yeah, he came around and he decided that was a good name. And we eventually would use that middle name also for our second child.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kind of in the naming tradition that you guys have. I think that is beautiful. That's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, names are super important. So glad you guys decided on that. It's hard to come to the point, especially when you. I just think that's interesting when you say he kind of wanted to save it, and yeah, because you're like, I want to use that name often, and I can understand where he's coming from, and I can totally understand where you're coming from too, because you're like, but he's part of our family, so we're gonna use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So your labor is progressing. The Pitocin is working. How is are the contractions quite strong? Are they just progressing at a okay pace, or is it going quickly? It sounds like you started on the Monday and went through the night ish. I don't know when that happened, but can you talk a little bit more about how your labor progressed?
Yes. So yeah, we started probably like to induce around midday Monday. I was definitely feeling the contractions. I
Mm-hmm.
think going through a second delivery, like in hindsight, these contractions were less strong, but I mean, in that moment, they felt strong.
Yes.
It felt like a lot.
When you add on the grief aspect to that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I labored overnight. For that night, they gave me fentanyl to kind of like take the edge off and help me fall asleep and rest. And then continued on next day by like early afternoon-ish, maybe like 2 o'clock the next day. I wasn't progressing very quickly. And so they wanted to break my water because that hadn't happened yet. And so they did that. I think at that point, that's when it started to get more painful. And so I opted for an epidural. And I wouldn't get that until a couple hours later, because I would learn that labor and delivery at this point, the ward was getting a bit busier. I think I probably got the epidural around like 4 or 5, and that helped so much. At that point, like I could like just rest in bed. The whole time before that, I was just like on my knees, like rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
Out of pain, but also just like trying to manage that pain through movement.
Right.
And I think after that, at that point, labor started to progress much more quickly. And because at that point, I was concerned about like how I was supposed to use the bathroom, being like stuck on the bed.
Right.
And they told me I would have a catheter. And so the nurse, after I got the epidural, was going to place the catheter. But at that point, she could see Kai's feet. And so she was like, I think he's coming. I think it's time that we grab your doctor. And actually, in that 12-hour period, so I think that's like, is it 24 hours? I'm not sure exactly. But basically, at some point, my own OBGYN was on call and was there to help me through the inactive labor. Is that what you would call it? Well, prior to active labor, she was there to help me through everything and kind of like, comfort me. And oh my gosh, what a blessing that was to have her there. Because she was there throughout the whole, all my other appointments. And, when she came on, she told me like, you did everything right. Like, this is not your fault. You did everything right. And by like 6, I think that evening, she was telling me that her shift was ending, that she would be going home. But, I think it was an hour later when our nurse said that she saw Kai's feet. And luckily, my OB was still there. I think she was wrapping up notes that she had. And so she was the one who delivered Kai. And that just felt really special that she was there and a part of it, like a part of his life the whole time, and he came very quickly. I think I was in active labor for like maybe 20 minutes or so. I think by the time the nurse had seen Kai's feet, it was like 7 p.m. And he was born shortly. Oh no, I think I'm remembering that wrong. No, it was a little bit earlier. It was like 6:30. He was born at 6:50.
Okay.
And
feet first.
It was feet first.
Yeah.
And with that epidural, like I really wasn't feeling too much pain. Mostly it was like back pain. And so I felt really good. It came out very quickly. And it was right during like golden hour. So the room was just being flooded with light. And it was, I just remember it being like so quiet, but this golden light coming through, and I was just bawling. And they handed him over to me, and we got some. Yeah, I don't remember them like ever really taking him away from me. After he was born, he went straight into my arms, and they did ask Adam if he wanted to cut the cord, but that was too hard for him to do. So he did not. But yeah, it was really the best and the worst moment. I have my baby here in my arms, and he had passed. And I think, I don't know, I just held him for hours. Again, I don't remember them taking him away from me at all, to clean him up. I'm sure it happened, but I think from like 6:50 till like 10, like he was in my arms that whole time. And we did ask Adam if he wanted to hold him, and he did, but briefly, because again, it was really, really hard for him, processing all of this and losing his son. And so he went back to me, and they eventually, our nurse during that shift came in and asked to weigh Kai and take his measurements.
Yeah.
And then she took pictures of him as well and got his handprints and his footprints, or at least just his footprints, I think.
Yeah.
They came out a little not very well defined. I mean, we were just grateful to have it at all, though.
Yeah.
But they did tell me, and the social worker told me the same, that I could have him as long as I wanted, and if I was ready to like give him back, that they could take care of him as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they did want to move me down to whatever ward comes after labor and delivery.
Yeah.
And so I just had him, like, I think for a few more hours. It wasn't until like after 1 a.m. that we would be moved, but at some point, like pretty late, like around 9 or 10, at that point, that is when, I wanted family to come and meet Kai.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think initially when he was born, Adam texted our families and told them that he came, he was here, but I wasn't ready to like share him just yet. I really like initially I just really wanted like all the time that I could have with him and not be interrupted by anybody. But by late evening, like I was ready. I really wanted him to meet his family. And so I kind of just told them like, hey, like come now. And everybody came like so quickly.
Yeah.
And both our families, they had to wait down in the lobby because they weren't letting more than 2 people up at a time into the room. So they would come in shifts. They would come, and yeah, everybody, my siblings, or at least my sister, my brothers were not present. They came. My mom, she held Kai and gave him kisses all over, and it was just, I don't know. I think I wasn't offering to people to hold Kai. I think I was just nervous, that might make them feel uncomfortable, and I didn't want to put them in like any sort of situation where like they felt discomforted, and I just didn't want. I wanted to feel personally comfortable and not feel like I was imposing.
Yes.
And so, but my mom, like, she asked, she wanted to hold her grandson. And that meant just the world to me. That she just would embrace him and give him kisses, and it not being like any sort of second thought, because I think part of my concern was that like when he was born, he did have like his skin was like kind of I don't know what you'd call it, kind of breaking, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's so fragile, and so yeah.
Yeah, and so but he was beautiful nonetheless, and he looked like such a good, like a perfect mix of me and Adam. Um, he had like kind of, I feel like longish hair for the stage he was in, and it
Yeah.
was wavy. It was, I knew he would have Adam's hair because it was this dark brown and wavy. He looked like a very sophisticated, like jazz singer with the waves he came out with. It was really cute.
That is so cute.
Um, yeah, and when Adam's mom came up and saw him, she was just like, he has Doug's arms and legs, which is Adam's father. And I didn't notice this, but she was noticing that Kai had like very long arms, which is
Oh.
kind of very characteristic of Adam's side of the
Oh,
family.
really?
Yeah, I know. And so, yeah, I think besides my mom, my sister held him too. But everybody else, they were just so sweet and caring for me and caring for Adam, and just asking about Kai, and yeah, it meant the world to me to have them there and to meet him and know him, like because you don't get that opportunity after. The only way people like know your baby is like through your pregnancy and in that brief time that they get to meet him. So it was really special that they showed up.
Yeah, and in the middle of the night, right? They came in
Yeah.
quite late.
Mhm.
I think that's yeah, I when you're talking about your siblings and coming in and your moms and family members coming in, I just think of my family too when they came and visited and how much love they showered upon us and is so excited to meet the new member of their family, which that is a wonderful thing to acknowledge. Like, this is a new member of the family, even though you
Yeah.
might not be able to stay. So, how kind of them to be there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long did you end up keeping Kai? Oh, before I forget, I like to ask this, but how big was Kai? Like, how much did he weigh? And how long was he? How tall was he, I guess?
Yeah. He was 3 pounds, 3 ounces. So pretty little, and then 16 inches long.
But
So
still pretty good size for a 30 weeker, I think. I think that's
yeah,
still a pretty decent size.
I think so. He seemed tall to me. I
Mhm.
don't know. Yeah, and I think my parents were both saying he had big feet for that age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fun. And so yeah, how long did you end up keeping Kai? And what did you guys end up deciding to do? Were you going to send him to like a funeral home to be buried eventually, or did you decide on cremation? What did you decide on that?
Mm. Yeah. So we kept Kai, I think, till like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Basically, they had just moved us from labor and delivery to
Hmm.
the room we would recover in, and we brought Kai down with us. I held him through that transition and that move, and then um, asked them to take care of him through the night while we rested. And we probably stayed up like a couple hours even after that, just kind of, processing again, like just the two of us. But they did tell us that if we wanted him again, to just ask, and they were happy to do that. And so the next morning, I told Adam that I wanted more time with Kai, and all of this was just so incredibly painful for Adam. And he did spend time more time with Kai that morning. But eventually he just had to, like, he couldn't be in the same room. It was just, I think, the most painful thing for him. And so I had basically decided, like, I'm going to spend maybe a few hours, couple hours with Kai, and he's okay to, go take a shower and just grieve, take that time to grieve by himself. And after that time, he wanted to leave. He really wanted to go home. And so in that, like, maybe 2 hours, I just held him the whole time. And then I took more pictures for myself. And I don't know, I just kind of, like, carried about with him, like, as if he were alive and present. Because for me, like, him being here, like, I have his presence. I can, like, and even him not being here, like, I feel his presence. So I talked to him. And so in that time, I just, held him and talked to him. And we had actually, I had found, like, a music box while I was still pregnant that I wanted to get for his nursery. And it's like, I don't know, it's like very heirloom, like it's blue and it has, like, a whale in the middle of it and, like, a seagull, like, flying above it, and this little, like boat that just moves along, like, on a track around the whale, and plays this sweet little song. And so I had planned on, playing for that for him, and that being, like, something that I would get for each of our children was this, like, a special little, like, music box, like, for whatever theme of, like, their pregnancy was. But that hadn't arrived yet. And so instead I would just, like, play on repeat the video they had with the music, the song, and just really cherished that time. The last, like, hours that I would get to hold him. But it's just, I think after that hour, just really recognizing that, like, my husband, he has needs too, and he needs to grieve in his way. And so while I had Kai still, I just packed up our things to get ready to go, because I knew that, like, if I didn't have him, like, I couldn't spend another moment there in that room.
Yeah.
And my OB had already cleared me for discharge. And so the social worker came back and told me that, I could keep the clothes that he was wearing, because she put him in a sweet little, like, satin, like, little nightgown.
Yeah.
That was just slightly big on him. And she told me that she could either take him now and address him and send that to me, or I could do that now. And so I did that. I undressed him, and she took him back in a blanket. She told me also that, like, I could wait, I could walk him back to where they were taking care of him, or she could take him. And I opted for her to take him. And I just remember it, like, so vividly, like, her walking out of the room and with my baby, with my Kai. And immediately I just told Adam, like, I'm ready, like, let's go. And so, yeah, we gathered up our stuff, and at the nurse's station was like, we're gone, like, we can't stay, we're leaving now. And I think they were a little surprised, and they knew we wanted to discharge, but I don't think they were expecting me to just, like, walk out of there.
Yeah.
But they were totally okay with it. They let us go. The walk from, like, the lobby to our car was the hardest thing and the worst. And I think one of the most traumatic parts of this loss for me was, or the experience of this loss was, just like as soon as as the elevator doors opened, it was just such a happy and beautiful scene with like expecting parents coming, like and arriving, and just kind of like chatting in the lobby and outside, and, and grandparents and new babies. And here I was walking out with a box of just a box of, the things they give you, like his handprints and footprints and his lock of hair and all the pictures they took. And it felt like just the worst, but that's not what I envisioned ever, and how we would leave the hospital, that he wouldn't be coming home with us.
It is the worst. It's the worst. I'm so sorry. Um, so did you guys decide what you plan to do for him?
Yes, we decided on a cremation. I think we both had always kind of, I don't know how this like comes up in the conversation, but we both had always thought that we would either be cremated or like, I don't know, there's a new kind of thing you can do where you gellify a person, and that can be used to plant a tree. But we had known for ourselves that's how we wanted to be laid to rest. And so we both had also knew that we would want to cremate. And so that's what we opted for. And yeah, I don't think I couldn't stand the idea of Kai being not with us. I wanted him near. And so we opted to have him cremated, and his ashes now are in a beautiful urn, but in like a little kind of shrine that sits in our family room. So he's always with us.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate. I had asked my parents if they could do all of the research and trying to find the best burial home to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I feel really blessed that I didn't have to do any of that and talk to people about, like what that process looks like.
Yeah.
My parents handled that all, and then they also took care of it financially. And yeah, we just had to pick him up, and that sucked. We found a spot that was really close to us, where we live, and we just drove there, and we didn't select one of their urns. We got a separate one, but they still gave us one, like a standard one that they have. I'll just always remember that, like, they handed him off in, like, this little wooden box kind of urn, and, like, a green paper, like, gift bag, essentially. It just felt, I don't know, so just not what you expect, not what you envision. And I don't think there's anything that can kind of prepare you for that process.
Yeah. That is not, when you said that, I was like, wow, that is not what you would expect at all. Like, for me, that would be so hard. Did you guys end up having any sort of memorial or celebration for him on his behalf with your family, friends to celebrate him at all?
We would. We did about 3 months later. I think, and before that, in those 3 months, we kind of really just took time to grieve, mostly by ourselves, and also just pour into like our own healing. Um, and so we planned actually to have his celebration of life in September, but the weather was bad, so we pushed it back to October, and we had it at home. And I essentially used everything that I had planned on using for the baby shower.
Oh,
Um, because actually, that baby shower, it was supposed to be happening that weekend,
oh,
right after Kai was born still. And so in preparation for that, my sister-in-law and my sister both spread the news to all of the rest of our family and our friends, which I don't know, that was personally hard for me. Again, I process things like internally. And so having to like immediately share with our world that like our baby had passed was really hard. And I think that's why we took so much time to just grieve by ourselves.
right.
Um, but we had that celebration at home of life at home, and used all of the decorations that I had intended for the baby shower, because like I didn't want it to feel, I don't know, I wanted it to be uplifting and like genuinely a celebration. I wanted people to just be in celebration and be with me in grief, but I guess just look back on Kai's life positively, that he, although he passed, he was here, and that was really special. Yeah. And I spoke, we had one of our closest friends kind of do the eulogy, I guess you can say. Um, and I asked both my parents and Adam's mom to speak, and just share, their what was on their hearts, and it was really special. And I think I had my sister-in-law read a poem, and my sister spoke as well. And then we also just kind of I held space to play a song, that I had planned on using to kind of like announce Kai's arrival. And so, yeah, it was just, I don't know. It's a song by the Flaming Lips, and it's Do You Realize,
Oh,
which I don't know if you're familiar with
yeah.
those lyrics, but I don't know, like I had always been planning on using that song to announce his birth, and it never had any sort of like somber, I guess, themes to me,
Yeah.
despite like the lyrics being like, I guess, addressing death in life. But it always just, for me, kind of emphasized like to taking time to recognize how special like life is and those
Mm.
moments with those people that you love. But it definitely, like, yeah, I saw it. It was just very interesting to me, like how it is that, but it is also like recognizing that time is limited, and you're not always promised life.
Yeah. That is now I'm gonna go listen to that song because I think you're right. I think it is a very yeah, it's a beautiful song. Ari, I'm wondering, the doctors, did any of your doctors or those folks that were helping you at the delivery, were they able to find anything that could have contributed to Kai's death?
So my OB, after she delivered Kai, she took some time to look at the placenta, and she
Mhm.
said it looked good. It was healthy, and there was no sort of knots in the
Yeah.
cord. So just like from appearances, she couldn't find a cause of death. And they did ask us if we wanted to do an autopsy, and they said that we could do an autopsy on just the placenta
Mm.
or the placenta and on baby. And since we knew we wanted to cremate, I really wanted answers. I wanted a definitive answer. And so we did both. And it took weeks to find out those results. We didn't find out until after that 6-week checkup. So it might have been like 7 or 8 weeks where I was just in the complete like unknown. And again, like I was just had so much feelings of guilt and lots of questions of like, what if? And when we finally did get the results, there still was no cause of death that they could find. And that has been something that I really struggled with personally, not having an answer. And like even leading up to before finding out, I just really wondered to myself, like, what is the outcome that I would have wanted? Like, what would have been, I guess, the best scenario is like having something like that was the cause of death and being able to like know that maybe there was something that could have been done or could have been prevented versus like not knowing at all. And I realized, like both suck. Like I don't like either.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change things. And but after finding out, I for weeks like just still really, really struggled with guilt and hated that there wasn't an answer. Because I feel like it just created space where I could continue to like put that guilt on myself.
Oh.
Um,
That's a great way of putting it because I don't know how to, I think you put it perfectly because I don't think people realize that women, as these moms, us, we take on that guilt that our body failed us and failed our baby, and especially when there's nothing to point to anything that definitively happened. And so, yeah, it's something that needs to be dealt with and you have to kind of grapple with for a time, it feels like. And I still do at times, right? I am so sorry for your loss of Kai and that missing little bit of missing part of your family right now. Is there anything that you would like to tell us about Kai that I may have missed asking you about, or any last thoughts about him?
his last thoughts are just that he was here. He was here and he was alive, and I'll always cherish the time that I had with him. And it was just I tell people like he was such an easy baby because it was such an easy pregnancy. And how he's always going to be a part of our family. I will raise whatever children we have and will have in the future, knowing Kai, and I'll intentionally, say his name. People will know who he is because he was very real and is still a part of our family.
Thank you so much, Ari. That was beautiful, and thank you for sharing his story with us today.
Thank you, Winter.